so I'm here with Dan Brzezinski. I'm wearing my One Team 360 shirt. Thanks, Dan.
How embarrassing. We match.
Isn't that awesome? And we're talking through One Team 360's features to some degree, but really the broader sense of how to do performance management for employees. And so just give us the 10-second overview of One Team 360, what it is, and kind of what you've built that solution for.
Sure. So essentially what we are is we're an employee management system for today's shift-based workforce. So we are an employee incentivization and management tool for employers of part-time and hourly employees.
Which is pretty cool because I think you can Google it. There's tons of solutions out there for performance management. They all do something slightly different. Usually it involves some element of time and attendance, which you don't do.
Nope.
But really what it's built for is intrinsically motivating, building really great teams for hourly shift-based workers, which I can't think of another solution that's in the market for that, which is really cool. Yeah, no,
there's nothing out there, and I know that because I went searching for it. So I have a relatively large lifeguard service business, which was my primary business. And really, we built the system for that company because there was nothing out there that really spoke to us. There were the big boys, the big players that, to be honest with you, I couldn't afford, even if I wanted to use them.
Right.
And even still, they were developed around workarounds that would work for my company, which I just simply couldn't rely on.
Yeah. So you've built something really cool at this stage, and we want to kind of talk through some of the challenges that you faced, how you've addressed solving them, whether it's with One Team 360 or you've addressed them before. And so today what we really want to talk about is building or starting team competitions that build a positive team culture, right? Let me just break that apart before we go too far into team competitions. It's easy to just talk about team competitions like they're just going to magically solve everything. But I think all of us at some point have tried some sort of reward system, tracking system that's backfired. I could give you horror stories of things that have happened in my own company. But let's talk about how, right? They're not the magic bullet for everything, right? How do people screw these up, right? I think you had mentioned some really cool things. Like, let's talk about a couple ways that people actually screw up team competitions, and then we'll talk about how to get them right. So walk through that for me.
Sure. So, and I actually sat and took some notes on this because I thought about all the things that we have done before One Team and before the access to the system that honestly, my goal was to motivate and excite my team to do more and to do better.
Right.
In turn, what I did is I really just angered them. I couldn't get it right? And you risk it so hard when you can't get it right that all of a sudden, instead of taking people from true believers and true passionate employees about your company, which they may have been before I screwed it up,
right.
Now all of a sudden you've really ostracized them and made them upset. So the first thing that I have done, and I used to do before I had a tangible system that I could work off of, we would overpromise and we would underdeliver. So
the recipe for success, right?
Oh yeah. So I promise you all Porsches. But the truth is we did it often. I mean, we just weren't realistic. And it wasn't on purpose. So really, we always had good intentions on what we wanted to do. But it was just too hard for us to track it. It was too hard for us to go through and build the system the way we needed it. So the time frame was underdefined or undefined. So we would say, hey, I need you guys to be great for a while.
Right.
What does that mean, right? And even if we got to a point where we said, all right, we need for the next 3 months, here's our motivating goal, right? This is our unified goal. We weren't able to track it. We had spreadsheets, but honestly, I would get busy or my ops guys would get busy, and now they're not tracking it.
I mean, this is embarrassing. We have real-time dashboards, but it's a quarterly time frame, and the team just doesn't even look anymore.
Right.
It's just
because
too
it's too long. Yeah, absolutely. The other thing is just clarity. I mean, when we think about overpromising and underdelivering, I think that it's easy, especially when we look at our target market, which is SMBs. And really, it's a lot of small businesses, a lot of mom and pops, and a lot of, one-man show or 5-man shows. Or as we get bigger, it's great, but they don't have more resources. We're still scraping for every penny that we can scrape for, and it's hard for us to really define clearly what the goals of the competition are.
Right. So if they don't know what to actually do, or it's something that they can't affect, quickly loses motivation.
And even more dangerously, if you are unclear in your expectations, you've got 10 different employees or 100 different employees. All 100 of them think it's going in a different direction and they're working towards something else. So if you're not completely clear about exactly what you're going after, all of a sudden you're going to upset 99 of the 100.
Right.
Right.
Except for the guy that wins.
Except
Or
for the guy who wins or the guy who feels like he figured it out. And yeah, absolutely. The other thing that we talked about was the competition can oftentimes become punitive. So we tie it to comp.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So now all of a sudden we've got people who are, the goal that when we set out on this competition was to motivate them and get them excited about working harder and working more. All of a sudden they're getting dinged as opposed to rewarded.
Right.
And now the competition becomes scary, right? It becomes a death match.
Right. It becomes their compensation.
Right.
So if the competition becomes compensation, now you feel like you're Clark Griswold and you're counting on this revenue to buy a pool and it doesn't happen. And now you're furious.
Absolutely.
I remember in business school, like hearing this idea that money actually doesn't motivate people. It demotivates them. Where you may have two people sitting next to each other doing the exact same job, loving life. And then they find out that the person sitting next to them makes 50 cents more an hour. And now these two people that were really happy one day, the next day are furious. And they don't like each other and they're ticked off because they feel like they're somehow cheated.
Yeah.
And that sort of becomes a danger when, once again, lots of embarrassing admissions here, right?
Hey.
Like we've all done this wrong, but the idea of allowing something to become motivating and all of a sudden it starts demotivating, starts negatively impacting our culture. How do you avoid that? Like what's the reward or intrinsic reward that happens out of competition to avoid that?
Phrase that question in a different way, just so I make sure I understand it.
Right. So if you've built your competition around this idea of compensation, what else could you give them to motivate them? Right. Because there has to be a carrot on the other end of it. If it's not a big check, right? Is it small checks or gift cards or?
Yeah. Great question. Great question. So really you have to know your audience.
Okay.
So I have multiple different audiences amongst my companies, and I've got the older professionals who are going to do this for life. I've got the younger high school students. So first and foremost, you have to really know your audience and know what motivates them, right? Mm-hmm. And that's done very simply through surveys. I mean, asking them. They want what they want.
They want to tell you what
they want to tell you what they want, right? They're excited for that Xbox or for that extra day off a week or whatever it is. So really when we started creating competitions, it was, all right, tell us what you want. And by department, depending on the role that they had within the organization, because remember, we are specifically talking to business owners who aren't in a position to put people on a bonus structure or they're mm-hmm. hourly workers, they're warehouse workers, they're front desk workers, whatever it might be. So we're not talking to the people who are bonusing out $10,000 checks at the end of the year.
Got it.
Right? So really what we did is we surveyed each department individually. And we found that, you know what's really exciting for a high school student or a college student as they're going off to school? An Xbox.
I see.
Right? So now we've got a competition, which is, we can launch whenever we needed to launch it. And I'm sure we'll talk about that at some point. But now we're saying, hey, the winner of this competition is earning something major and meaningful to them.
Oh, that's cool.
My admin, who are full-time employees who are going to be with me for years, you know what they're motivated by? They're motivated by a 3-day weekend for the next 4 weeks.
Nice.
If you win that competition, you get a 3-day weekend for the next 4 weeks, right? And that's something that's really meaningful for them, and that's something that they communicated to me.
And in a sense, that is, it's money, right? It costs you money. It costs you they're gone on a 3-day weekend. We got to bring somebody else in to fill that role. But we've disconnected that compensation sort of conversation, and it becomes gratitude. You've done this really great job. Now they feel it's interesting because that's always been a principle for me for like referral strategy is don't pay the person referring to you as a commission structure or because then they start to expect it like it's compensation.
Right.
So the same thing applies here. Like you motivate them with something that generates gratitude, a gift.
Yeah. And we have had feedback from a couple of potential clients who say, well, that's just going to cost me more money. I said, you know what's going to cost you more money? Your employee turnover costs you over 100% of their annual salary, right? And you can't even quantify the loss of revenue from clients who are upset and leaving because they're on their fourth, whatever it is, hairstylist or their fourth swim instructor, whatever it is that they're, whoever it is that's working for them. So really we're talking about a couple dollars here versus thousands of dollars on the back end if we just don't do it right.
Right.
So I often say to people, they have a hard time getting their head around this, and I say to them often, you don't know what you don't know. You know what you've done forever. I'm telling you, try it a different way. And all of a sudden we're getting phone calls saying, man, why didn't we do this sooner?
Right. So we've identified two ways that we're doing it wrong. Over-promising, under-delivering, lack of tracking, lack of clarity, lack of defined time frame. We're making the goal value wrong, right? Where competition becomes compensation. What's the final or third way that we do it wrong?
I would say the lack of achievable results. So it is creating a 300-yard football field where all of a sudden it's
too far.
It's just too far, right? It's something where employees look at it and they say, "There's no way I'm going to get that. So why do I even try?" Right? And we see that all too often, unfortunately.
So with the compensation one, you can really tick people off. With this one, you just turn them into passive mush.
Which is more dangerous than anything.
They're not engaged.
Really,
at all.
they're completely unengaged. They're saying, you know what, I'm just going to keep doing the bare minimum, and that's exactly what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to get people who are excited as an individual, which work towards the central goal of the team doing more and being more motivated.
So I want to dive into some examples that you've done, but let's kind of go back through and let's look at principles on how to do it right, because you've obviously spent significant time figuring this out. What are ways to do the exact opposite, right? How do you structure competitions now?
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, realistic goals and expectations for the employee. So it has to be realistic. It has to be something that's completely achievable, that we're just going to push them 25% outside of their norm.
So these aren't stretch goals. These are achievable goals.
No, these are completely achievable goals. They should get them when all cylinders are firing. Mm-hmm. However, and fitting for where we are right now, but when all cylinders are firing correctly, there's no reason that it shouldn't work, right? If everyone's just carrying their weight. And really, the way that this individual competition, this points competition works is that, again, I'm motivating each individual person on the team.
So let's say you have 20 employees. Does each of those 20 employees get a different goal?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. So what we would do, if you think about a department, okay, so let's just call it the warehousing department. And I'm going to say, okay, warehousing department, we're launching this competition. It's X amount of days, whatever you choose, a week, a month, a quarter, shorter the better, I believe. Yeah. And whoever earns the most points within that quarter is going to earn the grand prize, whatever it may be. So the system tracks it in real time, so they can actually watch and see exactly, which kind of leads into my next goal for success. It tracks it in real time, so they can actually look on their smartphone app or on their computer and say, all right, I've got 10 more days left. I'm in third place. What's it going to take for me to do
They know
to win the
exactly
competition?
what to do.
Yep. And the system is tracking it live, and it's automated. It's not relying on someone having to go in there and check it off on a spreadsheet and get crazy.
So how much of this is tied to, I know what I can do, and I have like my destiny in my hands, versus I'm part of the team and the team is dictating those goals? So if Bill over here doesn't do his job, we're sunk.
So there's two competitions that we have in the One Team 360 system. One is an individual-based competition, okay? And that is 50 people on a team. There's going to be one winner at the end of that competition.
Got it.
Okay? All 50 are working towards the same goals. They all have the same essential goals, where they're arrive to work on time, in uniform, perform opening procedures, closing procedures. Okay. They've essentially got their objective list of things they have to do.
So this isn't rocket science. This is, here's the basic expectations that we have of every employee. The more you adhere to them, the more you live out our company values, the more you show up ready with a smile on your face.
Yep.
Okay.
I often think about the movie theater example, right? I arrived to work on time in my uniform. I clocked in. I got straight to work. I started popping popcorn. I cleaned the theaters between shows. And someone's obviously, we're checking this and making sure that we're good. At the end of the shift, I cleaned the popcorn machine. I clocked out and I went home.
So is that based off of tasks?
Yeah, it's off of tasks. It's off of performance. It's off of skill assessments. It's off of a number of different things.
Gotcha. So if you weren't using a system for this sounds really difficult to track and manage.
I don't see, looking at it now, and I often say this, that my team with my Lifeguard business, we joke about if we lost, we used to call it the app, is what we used to call it. Now it's called One Team. If we lost one team, we would sink. We wouldn't, there's no pun intended there, but we would literally sink. We wouldn't have the resources and the ability.
So this takes it to a whole nother level. What's a way to sink it back down if you're in an organization that doesn't have one team, right? What did you track before?
I mean, really, how did we track, or what did we track?
What did you track?
So really, the things we tracked were very simple. It's when the next lifeguard came in, had the opening procedures been completed correctly, had the closing procedures.
So the manager would check off a bunch of stuff, and then you would manually post it.
Yep.
And now it does it all automatically for
automatically.
you.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's individual. What's group?
So the group is it's tied to what we have called our positivity index. Okay, so now you take all 50 warehouse workers.
Okay.
And all 50 warehouse workers versus front desk versus whoever, but it's not a competition, so to speak. It can be. And based on the available points that employee has,
I see.
or the team has, what is their score overall?
So you can take departments that have incongruent goals, and you can say, based upon the available points, based upon how many you were actually able to achieve, you can create this objective measurement of company culture. Which
exactly
is,
right.
I can't think of too many other frameworks or ideas of measuring objectively company culture, right? You had these available opportunities. You took this percentage or aggregate of them.
Yep.
And now you have this view of like, this department is really overperforming.
Yep. And I'll tell you an example of what we saw is when we started launching Positivity Index and we started offering, we would essentially say, hey, if your department can finish above 90% on the Positivity Index, you get $5 gift cards to Amazon or whatever it is. Let's just make something up, right? Everyone gets a new jacket, a new company jacket. So what you would end up having is you would have the 1 week link. You'd have a bunch of other staff members within, because they're all being judged together, isn't that right? We've got individual, but we've also got group. Individual, They're doing their own thing. They're earning their own prizes. The other competition is this group Positivity Index. You would have the weak link start to get pestered.
Hold up, yeah.
By some of the other people going, hey, dude,
I want my gift card.
Pick it up. We're almost there. Like you're the one. You keep showing up late to work and you're dropping our positivity index.
Such a huge component of like human behavior, right? When you talk about intrinsic motivation, being part of a high performing team and seeing the, not to call them a slacker, right? The person that just wants to do the bare minimum only, you start to see the team pull them up into reflecting the company values and reflecting team performance. Otherwise they self-select out because they don't want to be the outsider. You've now pulled in a high-performing team.
Exactly. And the other thing is you've built, I know this is obvious, but you've built the team. So now you've got that one outsider who goes to a different high school, or that one outsider who lives in a different city or speaks, like their primary language isn't English or whatever it might be, right? And you've got that person who is now, if they can nail it, now they're part of this full functioning unit, which was impossible for us to do on an individual basis.
Right.
But when you put that team together with a common goal.
Right. That's so great. Give me some examples. I'll tee up some softball sort of questions for you. You're in a shift-based environment. You obviously are with the lifeguarding business, right? So give me some examples of using a individual or team competition to do something like picking up shifts, because I'm sure everybody that has shift-based work has to hound employees to pick up shifts.
Yep.
How do you do that?
Well, the simplest example, which I use again and again and again, is August is a tough month for anybody who employs college students, right? Even high school students, really. If you have really a summer gig, whether it's summer camps or lifeguards or Smoothie King or whoever you are.
It's so funny that your business is oriented around summer. Most businesses are oriented around like a retail season that's crushed in the holidays. So
which is
same thing.
Same thing, right?
Right.
Same thing. Yeah, we're changing months, but it's the same thing.
Right.
So what we would start doing is launching an August lifeguard challenge. So we know that in August we're going to lose half of our staff, not because they have to go, but because they want 2 or 3 or 4 weeks off before they go back to school. Okay, which is fair, and I understand that. Now, when we launched our August lifeguard challenge, and we said, "Hey, we're struggling. We can't fill shifts. We're having all these issues. Whoever earns the most points in August, from August 1st to August 31st." Whoever earns the most points wins an Xbox or something major, something substantial that they can run home with, right? All of a sudden, you've got a bunch of kids who could potentially be less than motivated. And I say kids, but it could be anybody. It could be, warehousing, anyone. all of a sudden they are really, really, really driven. Now, another example would be same thing, but instead of an Xbox, we've got a 1 week vacation on a cruise, which costs the employer maybe $500 or $600 total.
Seriously?
Yeah, I mean, to go on a cruise, you're looking at $250, $350 for a 5-day cruise to Ensenada or something like that.
I need to cruise more often. I
don't know if you want to go on that one. But you're looking at a really, really, really inexpensive thing, and all of a sudden you've got too many people who want to work.
Right.
And now they're begging to pick up shifts, and they're begging to work more because they're there. They're within reach of that,
right,
whatever it is.
They know what the goal is. They know how to get there. It's completely achievable. There's clarity in who's going to win.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yep.
How about, I'm still like fascinated by this idea of how to objectively measure company culture. And maybe that's entirely different podcast. I'm going to come to you with a bunch of research on how companies do it because I can't think of an objective way. It's always these touchy-feely, fuzzy sorts of, yes, there's NPS surveys or these other sorts of things, but those don't objectively measure performance as tied to, like it may measure some snapshot of sentiment,
right?
But this idea of measuring their actual actions versus this hypothetical, which is what an NPS would be, a Net Promoter Score.
Right, and then the beauty of this is that we've got a really cool combination because what we have is we have completely objective goals and guidelines that the employer sets, and our customer success team helps them set them. They set these really clear objective guidelines and goals. The employee every single day sees these objective goals and guidelines right in their face. They can't miss it. At the end of the day, they're provided feedback on whether they reached those goals or did not and why not. The system automatically does this. It's been rocket science for us, but it's not rocket science now that we've built it.
Yeah.
And then the most important piece of this is that at the end of the day, when they get their score, they also give the employer their score.
Oh.
So the name of the company is One Team 360 for a reason. We have this 360 feedback loop where every day I'm saying, hey, Paul, log in to see your points for the day.
And then show me mine.
And then before you can see your points for the day, I need you to rate the company and how did we do? How did we do managing you? Did we give you the tools you needed to be successful? And the totally customizable questions that fit within the company mission and vision and so on. Once they've graded us and given us feedback on a daily basis, which is anonymous, right? It's just anonymous feedback to the company. They get their score. Yes, you got a point, or no, you didn't get a point, and here's why. You arrived to work late, you were not in uniform, and you didn't finish your closing procedures.
Nice.
Right?
So objective,
completely
nothing
objective.
To complain about. You know exactly what was expected.
Nope. Now we do have our button to I want to fight this because they have maybe their manager maybe we did, maybe we blew it. So hey, click the that was easy button and let us know, and we're happy to have a conversation about it. This
feels like a completely different sort of, I don't know, this idea of driving real-time feedback, right? When we hear 360 reviews, what we mean is what I've typically understood that to mean is that once a year, twice a year, if you're lucky, once a quarter, you ask your peers that are sitting around you, how would you rate Paul's performance?
Right.
And that's not the same thing as having this daily sort of quick pulse check-ins on how are we doing, how do we improve, how do we fix this. It feels like the inevitability is health if you structure this right, because you're getting honest, quick feedback and an honest performance evaluation that's tied to what are the expectations, as opposed to something that's really driven by a performance evaluation that's tied to compensation structure.
Right.
So the healthiest organizations have disconnected that, but I still can't think of a system or a process that does this in an organization frequently, right? Daily.
I challenge anyone to find one that does.
That's awesome.
And the other big thing that this has done is it's decentralized management to some degree. So we've always got the boss calling the shots, and where I have seen success, where I've seen my business grow, and where I've seen myself be able to take weekends off for the first time in a long time, is I've given every employee from the bottom to the top the ability to make decisions on behalf of the company. We may not always go the route that they want us to go, but they have the ability to give us that feedback and to provide us the what they have knowledge that I don't have. They spend more time with my clients than I spend.
You're on the front lines.
Yeah.
You should see it. And this is a great way of baking in kind of you're grading them on company values and performance expectations in a way that they get to own it. So I'm going to ask you some quick questions before we wrap up. if I'm going to implement this, what's the best way? Like, is a daily competition, like, hey, this weekend or Friday is going to be a busy day. Is that too short of a time frame for a competition, or that's still ideal?
We've seen people utilize it in completely different ways. My personal preference is about a month.
Okay.
I think a month is long enough to keep them motivated. I don't have to, on the back end, I don't have to get as creative to come up with a million different prizes and presents. And you almost,
I see.
if it's too short, you almost have to have someone managing the competitions, right? Coming up with cool incentives to keep people motivated.
So a month is ideal.
I personally feel for my team, a month is ideal. It's short enough that if they blow it, they can restart in 25 days or 20 days. They haven't missed the boat, so to speak. And you can also justify decent prizes and decent incentives.
All right. You have high school, college students as a workforce. Give me 5 ideal rewards.
So if we're going big, if we're going like real challenge points, again, Christmas time, for me, it's August, right? I think something big that is, they're not going to go splurge on themselves because it would really impact their life.
Right.
So an Xbox is a perfect
You
example.
don't have to negotiate with your parents to get one. Work gave me one.
Work gave me one. So, and for the business owner, it's $300 or $400.
Okay.
Done. Okay. The other pieces, they love swag. They love days off, and we could joke.
What's great swag?
For us, it's jackets, beanies, coolers,
Good
things
brands.
of that. Yeah.
Does it matter the brand?
No, to me, the brand matters because our workforce is aware.
And then how big of a logo do you put on that thing?
We logo it up. I mean, we absolutely logo it up. I mean, here I've got it on our chest here, and we would do something similar on a water bottle. It would be the full water bottle. They don't mind sharing it. They love sharing it. And honestly, if we've done it right,
if they love working there, then
they're really proud of their workforce, they work. Excuse me, they're really, really proud of it, and we see that all the time. And we'll talk about level ups later, but as we see our employees level up in the system, they get a push notification and a certification saying, "Hey, congrats, you've moved to level 2."
Nice.
Okay, which again we'll talk about later. We see that they actually share it on social.
Oh wow!
So they're excited about it. It's a big deal when they get through it.
Nice. Any advice to someone that's maybe gun shy about doing this because either they've tried it in the past and failed or haven't done it at all and feel like the visibility is scary? What would you suggest?
Honestly, what I would suggest is really, I hate to even say it, but just do it. I mean, it's something where you have to be well thought out. We would coach you through the whole process. But really, it's surveying your staff, finding out what motivates them, what they're excited about. And then, again, going through all these things. So realistic goals and expectations. The structure of the competition is completely clear, which we help do. We'll help you build your first one. If you do that right, it's a win every single time.
Nice.
But you have to do it right, and it has to be well thought out. It can't just be, it's not going to be a one and done.
Yeah.
It needs to be something that is constantly dangling the carrot, so to speak,
right,
that your employees get really excited about.
So are you always running a competition?
Not always. When we have our, because it does become tired at some point. So really, as we're going into summer, as we're going out of summer, we're running them. Wintertime, we're running them. In those weird months, like right now, we're not running any.
Got it.
We've got plenty of staff and everything's fine.
Got it. So you're really using this as a motivation tool,
right?
As opposed to, I mean, I guess that makes sense, right? If you're running them all the time, it becomes compensation, becomes the expectation that I can get cool stuff every month.
Yeah. Now we do, the positivity index automatically runs ongoing, right? So based on available points, there was 100 points. How did we score out of those 100 points? That's running every calendar month through the system automatically.
So that's just showing you where you're at from a health perspective. If you choose to motivate it with some sort of competition in that period, you can pick that up and say, hey, we're got it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'd love to hear how you guys are using competitions in your business. We'd love to see how that impacts your team culture and how you actually measure that. If you want to see how One Team 360 puts that together, can put that together for your organization, please go to our website, www.oneteam360.com. You can always ask Dan for more ideas for competitions in your business, and we'd love to see you on, I guess, social or even on our website chat.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.